And a good morning, Birds fans. Birds 365 is in your living room or your car or your office, wherever you may be consuming us. We appreciate the fact that you are, and we're counting down to a regular season. It seems like it's about 9 years away, but it'll get here before you know it. And we'll try and get it here faster for you by shooting the breeze about the Birds on a day-in, day-out basis. We are the Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald. What kind of mood you in today, McMullen?
Not a great mood. Had some issues with the tree in the backyard. You ever see the movie The Happening, Jody? With Mark Wahlberg. It's the dumbest movie ever made. It's an M. Night Shyamalan movie where basically the trees turn on us. I don't want to get into the plot of the movie. But, you know, I'm doing my business, taking out the trash this morning, taking out the recyclables, got to get the dog out. Every time I walk under the big tree in my backyard, it starts a little bit of tree rain, I like to call it, because it rained so hard last night.
Yeah.
It's nice out this morning, but the wind goes by, and all of a sudden this deluge, it's like it's raining, comes out of the tree. Every time I walk under the tree, it happens. And I'm like, that's weird. And then my dog goes out to do her business, and she does a little circular kind of roundabout and goes under the same tree. Same thing happens, Jody. The tree has turned on us. It has turned on us, like Mark Wahlberg in The Happening. So I'm a little bit concerned. I say this because the Sixers turned on Philadelphia with the worst second half of basketball you can imagine.
You're subscribing the Sixers to being in an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Hey,
that's not a good thing.
It was a horror movie.
Man. He likes sitting at courtside. M can't be doing that. He can't be writing Sixer bad movies. That's not a good Philly guy for you.
No, that's not a good Philly. And it was a horror movie. That second half was a horror movie of a basketball game. So maybe we can turn people's moods around, talk a little bit about a bad football team that I think is going to be better than people think. Maybe that's a little positivity.
Okay. Yeah, we're subjectively optimistic about the Eagles. We shall see if that's the case. Yeah, that's tough. And you can't even get all that worked up about the Sixers because what are you going to do? Get mad at Joel Embiid? He's the best player on your team.
Yeah,
He's the second best player in the league, and he went 0 for 12. This stuff happens, so you got to shrug your shoulders and go, oops, our big guy let us down.
Normally, when you have superstars, you don't have 0 for 12 halves. You can have a bad game. Everybody has bad games, but that's the thing that defines superstars. Your floor is higher than other people's floors. You find a way through it. You find a way to do some things. You don't go 0 for 12. Maybe it's happened, but show me the game where Kareem or Moses or go back to Wilt or Hakeem Olajuwon. Give me an 0 for 12. Maybe it's out there. I don't remember it. In a key situation, I don't remember it.
And a point-blank layup from about 3 feet away in the last 30 seconds of the game. He never misses that. He did last night. So we got a series. We got a couple series, as a matter of fact. They got 4 NBA series left. One is done, and the other 3 are 2-2. So we'll have some good basketball over the next couple, or exciting basketball. We'll find out if it's good, because you're right. The Sixers were not good last night. That was a tough watch in the second half. So, yeah, Johnny Mac and I, not necessarily in the best of moods, bummed out by the Sixers loss last night. But we'll try and make it up for you here on Birds 365, or we won't. Because Johnny Mac is much more stoked for the breaking news we got in the last 10 minutes of our show
I wouldn't
yesterday.
call it stoked, Jody. I just think it's the best you could have done. But I don't think third-string quarterback matters that much anyway.
Right. I am not excited about him as a third-string quarterback or any kind of player. I'm not a Nick Mullins fan. I get it. The Eagles needed to add another arm. And if you look at it purely from all the available quarterbacks, who's put up the biggest resume? Who's got the most on paper that you can analyze? Who's got the most touchdown passes? Well, it's Nick Mullins, because he started a ton of games over the last 3 years. including 8 last year for the 49ers, including one in which he lost, that the Eagles actually won. He's one of the only 4 quarterbacks that the Eagles found a way to beat last year in their 4-11-1 season. It's just, I've seen enough of this guy. He can't play in the league.
Hopefully you never see him.
I know third-string quarterbacks very rarely play, but anytime you add him to your roster and you're adding a player that can't play, I'm sorry, it bothers me. And chances are they could have signed someone who's never played a down in the National Football League that I would have been more excited about than Nick Mullins.
Well, they did have somebody, Jamie Newman. I would say if you were more excited about Jamie Newman than Nick Mullins, I mean, it depends on your definition. I don't have a problem with your definition of you should have a developmental guy as a third-string quarterback. I can understand that. I can, we can have that debate. But if you're going to debate the two as players, there is no debate. So I asked, what's your definition of can't play in the NFL? This guy most definitely belongs in the NFL. If it's can't play at a winning level as a starting quarterback in the NFL, yeah, I'll agree with you. I'll probably say that. But this guy should be a backup quarterback. And if he didn't have elbow surgery in January, he would be a backup quarterback. So if you look at value and you look at potential, if he's healthy, and we always got to put that stipulation on everything. I mean, this is one of the best third-string quarterbacks in the league. It's ironic because I think the Eagles have one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league in Joe Flacco, one of the best third-string quarterbacks in the league in Nick Mullins. But who cares? I mean, it's all about the starter. It's all about Jalen Hurts. And for those who say you need a developmental guy, Chody, I will say you have a developmental guy. He happens to be the starter, though, but he's still a developmental quarterback.
Yeah, I understand the way you're looking at it, but you can't have a developmental guy as your starting quarterback. He moves past developmental as soon as he moves up a slot or two in the depth chart. Developmental to me also ties in where you are on your depth chart. You're trying to get better. If you are the starter, you're the starter. The developmental comes out of it. For me, that's the way I look at it.
But I think if you're a rookie, say if Trey Lance plays week 1 per San Francisco, it's not going to happen. But say Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt or something of that nature, and he's thrown out there week 1. Oh, he's a developmental quarterback, but he's also the starter. So, again, everything depends on definition. Maybe the Eagles want veteran guys behind Jalen Hurts as sounding boards. We always talk about it with the coaching staff. They haven't done it with the coaching staff. I don't think it's a bad thing to have guys who've been through it before where Jalen Hurts can lean on. I think it helps you in 2021. What year are we in, Joe? 2021 more than certainly Jamie Newman, or if you bring in KJ Costello, Nick Mullins is a better player. So if you're truly about competition, as Nick Sirianni says, hey, they got the better player.
What was the phrase that Howie Roseman used last year, night of or the day after the draft, when the Eagles picked Jalen Hurts in the second round about the Eagles and quarterbacks?
The quarterback factory you're talking about?
Yeah, the quarterback factory. How are you a quarterback factory if you're bringing in the ageless wonder, Joe Flacco, who's already done everything he's already done in the National Football League? I think a factory is meaning you're having something to do with the ability of the player. They've got nothing to do with the ability of Joe Flacco. Zero. Other than they wrote him a contract this offseason, which here's where I'll give Howie credit. By signing Nick Mullins, it basically allows everyone to revisit the contract that they gave Joe Flacco, which when they signed him, I thought was a good sign. I'm a Jet guy. I watched Flacco play last year. I said, he still got a little something. He made some good plays. He didn't win for the Jets, but he made some decent plays. He showed that he still has arm strength and the like. When they signed him, I said, okay, that's not a bad sign. For a backup quarterback, Flacco's a pretty good fit here in Philadelphia. Then we got the details of the contract, and they guaranteed him money. backup quarterbacks don't usually get the majority of their contract guaranteed. I don't know who they were in competition with that they felt they had to do that to get Flacco's name on the dotted line, but they did. And it will now raise all those questions again because there will be a contingent of people who will say, oh, Nick Mullins should be the number 2 quarterback, not the number 3 quarterback. He's actually better than Joe Flacco. He played more than Joe Flacco. He threw more touchdown passes than Joe Flacco. No, he shouldn't. Nick Mullins just isn't that good. But if you're going to sign Joe Flacco and you're going to bring in Nick Mullins, what kind of quarterback factory is Philadelphia? If you're truly a quarterback factory, don't you find that developmental quarterback and have him on the roster so that you can, develop him? Since you are the quarterback factory, you would think you'd be able to develop a quarterback.
A couple things. And number one, I'd like to have fun with that quote as much as anybody, the quarterback factory, because it was so absurd at the time. It was stripped in hubris. It was stripped in ego. It was just a dumb thing to say. And that's why I enjoy, to be honest, poking Howie Roseman, the Eagles, about that comment. Howie, which people forget because people hate context, Howie walked that back immediately. He has said, I'm a basic. He came out and said, I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry I said that. But everyone doesn't care. I mean, he said it. It's out there. It's like gold standard with Jeffrey Lurie.
Right.
People still talk about that. So people are going to bring that up. I understand why. But again, he's already walked it back. He's already said he shouldn't say it. He shouldn't have said it. So to me, that's not as meaningful as maybe it is to some other people. If you do believe you're a quarterback factory and you are dripping with that hubris and you believe you can make anybody into chicken salad, from what, yeah, but I don't think they believe that. And he said, in essence, he made a mistake by saying that. What he was really saying is, we value the position. We value the position. And everybody values the position, but Howie in the past has also said backup quarterback, and that's one of the reasons he drafted Jalen Hurts. That's one of the reasons they invested in Nick Foles back in the day. Josh McCown even. They value the position. They always want somebody at second-string quarterback. In fact, they called second-string quarterback one of the 10 most important positions in the league, which I also think is a bit overblown. You're kind of crossing your fingers. So I think when you look at it from that standpoint, the fact he's walked it back, the fact that what he really meant to say is we really value this position, and actually makes more sense because you want guys that can play, that can get you through a game if they have to, if you need them. You don't need to throw somebody in the deep end of the pool. The stage at the bare minimum is not going to be too big for Nick Mullins. I'm not going to say he's going to be a superstar. He's had good games. He's had bad games. But he knows how to play. And if the worst case happens, Jalen Hurts gets hurt, Joe Flacco comes in, sprains an ankle, you got to go down to your third-string quarterback to win a game, you actually have a chance to win a game with Nick Mullins. If you have a chance to win a game with your third-string quarterback, you have a good third-string quarterback. If you have Ben DiNucci,
I'll give you the Ben DiNucci. God, he was terrible. Another one of the few Eagle quarterbacks. Few quarterbacks in the Eagles found a way to beat last year. That's what Ben DiNucci and Nick Mullins have in common. They both lost to the Eagles last year.
They had a tough time with Nick Mullins, though. They didn't. Well, besides Alex Singleton.
Did he or did he not get pulled from the game? That's pretty sad.
He did.
When you get pulled from a game against a team.
I'm not trying to say he's a star quarterback. I'm just saying as a third-string quarterback, I think if you were to go down the list of third-string quarterbacks, you would say, I'd rather have Nick Mullins playing than most of these guys. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, there'd be very few of those that would be true for me. He has more experience than some, but I would take the unknown of a whole bunch of quarterbacks that have never done anything in the league than the known of Nick Mullins. The known is, to me, He's not good enough. He can't win football games when you put him in, not as a starter, not as a backup. If circumstances fall into place that he needs to take the field, can he actually find a way to win the game for you? And it's almost always a no for me for Nick Mullins. So this gives me next to zero level of excitement. Let me ask a rules question. You understand the rules of the National Football League?
That nobody understands the rules. It's so over legislated. There's so many changes. But go ahead. I'll give.
I asked the question with the caveat that it's some of the rules they have are very confusing. The Eagles could actually during the season they could have Nick Mullins on the practice squad, correct? Because you can be on the practice squad up until you've logged 4 years in the National Football League, and this would be his 4th year. So Nick Mullins actually is eligible for the practice squad, right? Because on game days, I don't think you need to. I don't think you should dress 3 quarterbacks. I think you should always only dress 2 because you have so much positional substitution and switching and the like, just to make the most out of your roster on game day. I don't think you can afford to have 3 quarterbacks. And if you don't, on certain weeks, would you rather just have Nick Mullins on your practice squad rather than carry him as a member of your roster? Because, again, roster management can be very important in the National Football League. Maybe a little less this year than it was last year, because we all believe we're coming in the right direction after the COVID season they had last year. It's still in place, but it's not nearly as important in roster building as it was last year. They can actually put him on the practice squad, can't they?
Yes, they can. That's a yes. And but there is a little bit of context, as there always is, as what I said is a very overly legislated league. And that is, are we sticking with the 2020 rules, or are we going back to the rules prior to the pandemic? Now, it's not official yet, but people in the league have been told it's going to be the same as last year. If it's the same as last year, the practice squads are expanded, 16 players. I believe you can have up to 6, actually, who are veteran players. And this was all kind of couched. It was going to expand, I think, to 12 with the new CBA. And they added an extra 4 and some more veteran players because they thought you would need more veteran players with people testing positive, blah, blah, blah. So if they keep the rules, which is the scuttlebutt going around the league, man, there's no problem with it. The only problem with it is from the aspect of, if you're going to risk putting a guy in the practice squad, 2 things. You got to release him first. And then in the case of Nick, I don't know if he's vested or not. I have to look. He's right on the cusp of being vested or not. So he would either have to go through waivers or would be completely free to sign with anybody. So at that point, we just talked about, there's so many quarterback desperate teams at the end of training camp. You could have injuries by that point. I don't know if you get him on the practice squad. That's the problem with that. Would I rather have a 3rd quarterback on the practice squad? Yes. It's not as easy to get Nick Mullins on the practice squad as it would be to get Jamie Newman. Right. Jamie Newman, you don't lose an ounce of sleep. He's on the practice squad. That's it. Nobody's picking him up. Nick Mullins, I don't know how you get him through to the practice squad. So you almost have to carry him on the roster if you want him.
Right, which is another thing that scares me, because if you're going to try, now someone actually does pick him up on waivers, and now you invested all those weeks of getting him up to speed, and oh, shoot, you still need a QB3. And now you got to pick somebody up off the street, and you got to try and get him up to speed. That's why it's better to have a developmental quarterback at this stage.
Well, you just keep him on the roster. You know, I mean, the 53rd guy, for all we talk about the competition and blah, 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 the 53rd guy on the roster is not going to play anyway. He's going to get scratched. He's not going to be active on game days. So who cares? You have those slots you're playing with. So just keep him on the roster.
And so you just say inactive, but he eats one of your inactives every single week.
Well, you can make him inactive, or if you're concerned, yeah, each and every week you can do whatever you want to do. But you're going to have to keep him on the roster.
Right. The Eagles roster is not good enough, deep enough, fortified enough that I could waste it on Nick Mullins. That's just me.
If it's not deep enough, you shouldn't be worried about losing a 53rd player, Jody, because it's not deep enough. So who cares is ultimately what I'm saying. You got to keep him, but you're not getting him on the practice squad if that's your question. Not going to happen.
Probably not. That's why I don't necessarily agree with a move that brings in an established player as your third string QB. I don't think it makes any sense. All right. We're going to get our first timeout of the day in here. When we return, Jeff Kerr, NFL insider for CBSSports.com, is going to join us. He just did an interesting story on a little historical perspective of a former Eagle general manager. That's just one of the things we'll talk about with Jeff Kerr from CBS next here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
but as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 to 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
We are your Mac guys here on Birds 365. Thanks for jumping aboard. We still got plenty of football left to talk to you today on, and we're going to get a helping hand. Our buddy Jeff Kerr from CBSSports.com going to be good enough to come on with us for a couple minutes today. Jeff, how's your summer going?
Pretty good, Jody and John. Actually going to the Baseball Hall of Fame for the first time this weekend, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, that's a fun time. Yeah, Cooperstown is great. Canton, I assume you've been to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They're all great, but the only two I've been to are football, baseball, basketball. Haven't been to hockey yet, and who knows? There's going to be someday. Jody and I are big wrestling fans. There's going to be a WWE Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
we're waiting for that.
Yeah, I was at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It was 2018. It was a couple months after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, so they had a lot of the Super Bowl artifacts, and they unveiled the video, the Super Bowl highlight video, and I never saw so many Eagles fans in the room in my life. There was one Patriots fan in there. I felt so bad for him, and he walked out when Brady fumbled the ball. It was probably the funniest thing I've ever seen.
That's funny. Thanks for sharing that story with us. Speaking of sharing stories, I did catch one of your latest on CBSSports.com about the Eagles and the fact that years ago, they had the first ever female general manager in the league. We're seeing a lot of advancement for women in organizations around the National Football League, but the Eagles kind of were ahead of the curve years ago with Todd Spencer being the first ever general manager in professional football. What was it? The fact that we're seeing all these new hirings in the NFL that spurred you on to doing a turn back the clock story on the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, when the Eagles promoted, I can never pronounce her last name. Catherine, John probably knows how to pronounce her last name.
Raish, yeah,
Raish, that's it. And so I was like, she's probably the closest to being the first female general manager, but I remember I've talked to Marty Schneider a bunch of times, Toast's daughter. So I was like, okay, let me ask her. She would know. And she goes, well, my mom technically was the first woman general manager. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, do you want to talk about it? Or, can I talk to Susan about it? And she, she told me, well, obviously Susan's 89 years old. So, and she's battling Alzheimer's right now. So that was unfortunate. But I got together with her and Marty, and pretty much they told the story of when she was the first woman general manager. And I'm like, well, let's talk about the Eagles moving to Phoenix. And I had a story in there, and it turned out really good. I actually thought the Toasts, were basically on board with the Eagles going to Phoenix, but it turned out to be the opposite of what I was told. They were the reason why they didn't go to Phoenix, and pretty much why they ultimately had to sell the team.
Yeah, I do think a lot of people look at Leonard Toast as the villain, as somebody kind of formulating that plan to get out of what were the gambling debts, to be perfectly honest. So that's kind of the story. But also, I do think she's overlooked because she was his daughter. So people look at it. We had Amy Trask on this show. If you talk to people in the NFL, she's the highest ranking female exec in league history. But that's correct, because she was the team president. So you have to pick out sort of these contextual things. And everyone says Catherine Raish, highest ranking female personnel executive. So that's how they kind of get around it. But it is interesting, Jeff, that the glass ceiling was broken so long ago and so few people remember it. So it was brilliant that you got that story.
Yeah, and I actually talked to Amy Trask about it. If she had any interactions with her, and at the time she was an intern for the Raiders. So yeah. She said, it was kind of few and far between it, if anything. But yeah, I always thought Susan Toast Spencer, her story was really interesting because she let a lot of what most good CEOs do as a general manager. She let everybody else do the work, but she ran things. Like, I didn't realize how much Toast actually spent on the Eagles, just trying to make the players happy with the chartered flights and all that. And that's how she said Howard Eskin gave her the Wicked Witch of the Vet mantra, because it went from let's go on these luxurious flights to, oh yeah, we can save a little bit of money here, or they'd have these flamboyant meals that Larry Toast would give them. It was a first-class organization, and it still was when she was there, but she found a way how to just cut a little bit of cost. And she actually told me a story. Steve Zabel, the Eagles' first-round pick in the 70s, when he went to the Patriots, he would call the Eagles back and specifically call Leonard Toast and complain about how the Patriots treat their players like garbage and compared to the Eagles. And, if there was free agency at the time, I have a feeling Leonard Toast would have gotten everybody on the Eagles, because word traveled fast around the NFL of how well the Eagles treated their players.
Yeah, and the guy he ended up selling the team to, Norman Brayman, let the greatest player in Eagles history, Reggie White, walk out the door in free agency. I doubt that would have happened if Leonard Tost was still running the Eagles. One of the things that you told me in the story that I had never known, and this, again, was before I actually came to Philadelphia and got on the air in Philadelphia, was that when Brayman did buy the team, he actually wanted to keep Tost's daughter in an executive position. Yeah, he hired someone to become the general manager, but he wanted to keep her on as part of the front office, huh?
Yeah, it pretty much went down to, hey, we love the job you did here. We want to keep you in a high-ranking position. It was more of old boss, your father, a new boss, a little bit of conflict there. It just didn't feel right, and she was ready to move on at that point. And I asked, did she want to get involved in football? Did she want to stay involved in football? And just said, that it was fun the 3 years she did it, but I guess they went through so much between the possible relocation and the Eagles basically just trying to stay afloat. The product on the field wasn't good. I mean, who knows how long Marion Campbell would have actually been the head coach? If he probably would have been fired after 85 anyway, but it seemed like they were doing a lot of good things. Like she said, she was initially involved in the process of Reggie White, Randall Cunningham, obviously she played a big role with, but a lot of the people that succeeded under Buddy Ryan, seemed like she had a little bit of an involvement in getting them here.
Yeah, Jeff, it's interesting. Jody and I were talking about the quarterback factory comment before you came on the show. So, when things like that happen, a lot of people forget that Howie walked that back and he said, I shouldn't have said that, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with sort of the meld between Leonard Tost and Norman Brayman. Norman Brayman was the cheap guy. Norman Brayman was the guy who, made the players buy their own socks and all those stories. And I think it kind of gets melded together for whatever reason with Leonard Tost. Oh, the Eagles are cheap. The Eagles, you still hear it today. And it's one of the teams that spend the most money in football. You'll still hear certain fans, older fans, say they're cheap. And it's tough to overcome that. And I think Leonard Tost kind of got a little bit wrapped up to that, and by de facto his daughter as well.
Yeah, and it's a shame that I read an article, I think it was from the LA Times, and I was doing research for this story. I think it was like from 92 or 93, and they interviewed Leonard Tost. He actually admitted he didn't know how much money he spent at Atlantic City one night. Atlantic City was probably the worst thing that ever happened to Leonard Tost. If the Eagles were probably in Phoenix, one, he fixed his gambling debt, and two, yeah, he's 4 hours from Vegas, no doubt, but 4 hours from Vegas is a lot different than an hour and a half from Atlantic City, assuming with no traffic. But yeah, I just felt bad for, when they're telling the story about it. I'm like, wow, it just seemed like he just liked to spend money, or he spent money. He didn't know what to do with all the money he had. Made all the money off the trucking business, and then he spends it on the football team, and then he goes to the casino and spends it. And it's honestly a tragic tale what happened to Leonard Tost. If he doesn't have those gambling debts, maybe the Toast is still owning the Eagles today.
It's all about who's running the organization. And that was Leonard Tost's day into Norman Brayman's day. Now into Jeff Lurie's day. Yeah, and we talk about him all the time here on the show. How much influence does Jeff Lurie actually have? At times, people believe, all right, he's backed off and he's letting his football people run the show. At other times, Jeff Lurie is basically deciding everything because the people that he's hired and put in charge know exactly what he wants, and they're going to implement it and make it happen. From an outsider perspective, someone who's not here covering Eagles on a day-in, day-out basis, how do you believe Jeff Lurie is perceived across the league?
Well, I should say from a national perspective, he's not like he's Jerry Jones. I know when I see a lot of Philly fans on Twitter be like, oh, Jeffrey Lurie's trying to be like Jerry Jones. I'm like, no, that's not true at all. I just think I want to say he just throws his input in there or throws his hat in the ring. I don't think Jeffrey Lurie actually tries to play the role of general manager, but he also knows he can talk to Howie Roseman, his guy, his confidant. This is the one guy he trusts more than anybody else. And I feel like a lot of owners have that. I always thought the Baltimore Ravens owners had that with Ozzie Newsome for a lot of years. And, Ozzie Newsome obviously retired. I thought the Maras probably felt that way with, what was their GM's name? Ernie occurs.
Oh,
Yeah.
You're going George Young on me.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of George Young at first, and I'm like, well, we'll go a little more. But yeah, I feel like every owner kind of has that. And in a way, it was kind of like Leonard Toast with his daughter. It's the one person you can trust out of everybody in that organization. I feel like that's how Jeffrey Lurie treats him with Howie Roseman.
Well, he did have Joe Banner as well, who was his right-hand man. So for people who think it can end, it can end. Everything, Jeffrey Lurie does have a shelf life on everybody. He's kind of proven that. I think from my perspective, Jeff, post-Super Bowl 52, he seems to get more involved. There's that Jeff McClain report that after the Eagles upset the Green Bay Packers, wasn't happy. Went into Doug Peterson and said, why aren't we throwing the ball here? Bad team just upsets a great team. You would think you would be happy by hook or by crook to get a win. Is Nick Sirianni going to face that same kind of criticism from his owner? Do you see that changing with age? It seems to only been increasing at this point, Jeff.
Yeah, I feel like Nick Sirianni will probably go through the same stuff Peterson did in a sense, but I think being a younger guy, maybe, and a first-time head coach, I mean, Doug Peterson was a first-time head coach, obviously, but Nick Sirianni being a younger guy, he'll probably be like, yeah, sure, okay, or I'll work my way through this like most young guys do. But you're Doug Peterson, you're in your 50s. You're probably thinking, I just want the only Super Bowl in franchise history. I shouldn't have to put up with this anymore. Oh, by the way, it's not like I never played in the NFL for 14 years. I've never done this. I've never done that. Who are you to tell me this? And it probably just got mentally exhausting at that point. And then you're dealing with the Carson Wentz situation and everything else that's going on in that locker room, all the injuries, and just the whole, can I do this again? Whereas you got Nick Sirianni, a young guy, an energetic guy. He probably will embrace Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman saying stuff to him right away because he's probably thankful for the opportunity that he's going to be a head coach and he'll work his way around that. But I just hope the Eagles let Nick Sirianni kind of do his thing a little bit. Like Jeffrey Lurie, he can give his input, but pull back the reins a bit.
Jeff, that's the reason why we like having guys like yourself on, because we're involved with this on a day in, day out basis. We not only analyze it, we probably overanalyze it down to the smallest of details from afar. Give us your perception of the Nick Sirianni era here in Philadelphia, from the time he was hired up until last week when he said, happy summer vacation, everybody, and let him walk out the door. Have you liked what you've seen? Has he shown you anything that you said, hey, this guy's got a chance to work? Or did he show you anything that you said, oh, my God, what did the Eagles do when they handed him the reins?
Well, we were actually laughing when he made the rock, paper, scissors comment. I'm listening to the press conference, and I said, guys, I think we might have, from a national perspective, I'm like, we got to have a story here. Nick Sirianni, he plays rock, paper, scissors with, with his players and, for competition purposes. But overall, the general feeling is, at least around the NFC East, they seem to like what Nick Sirianni's doing, how he's bringing competition around the NFL. Like, even the Nick Mullins signing, it's a third quarterback, but in a way, Joe Flacco's got me looking over his shoulder thinking, wow, this guy can actually take my job as the number 2. And I feel like the Eagles, they're a deeper team than they were last year, but I feel like there's more competition at a lot of positions, specifically the offensive line. You look at Jordan Mailata, Andre Dillard, Jack Driscoll can come in, Nate Herbert can come in, Sua Opeta can come in, guys like that. And same with the defensive line. Like, you didn't need to add Ryan Kerrigan, but you did. And now all of a sudden you fill the hole there. So say Derek Barnett or Josh Sweat or whoever doesn't work out, you can fill Ryan Kerrigan there. Really, the only position I think that's weak, that's ridiculously weak on this football team is cornerback. And the way the Eagles are going, I wouldn't be surprised to see them add another cornerback in there just for competition. So I like what they're trying to do. And I don't think it's a rebuilding year per se in Philadelphia. I think it's a retooling year.
Well, retooling, Jeff, transition. I've asked this of a lot of people, so I want to get your thoughts on this. The Eagles seem to go through this same cycle since Super Bowl 52. They thought the championship window was open, understandably so. They probably thought it was open a little bit too long. And then Howie Roseman started to come out and say, you know what, we got to get younger after the final loss, whether it's loss in the playoffs to Seattle, terrible season last year. We got to get younger. We got to get more cost effective. We got to turn this thing over. That's what he says after the season. As the offseason moves on, they start to think to themselves, we're a little bit better than other people think we are. And then you see the Ryan Kerrigans come in. You see the Nick Mullins come in. As you mentioned, I think you're going to see a corner come in at some point. Who knows? We're in that phase right now. Should the Eagles be more disciplined? For instance, Jody thinks they need a developmental quarterback, not just at the quarterback position, but that should they be more disciplined with their plan to get younger and more cost-effective moving forward?
I think so, but this was a weird year too for quarterbacks. Like Jamie Newman had to be absolutely terrible to not even make it out of minicamp. But basically, I mean, that's how big he was. And this was a weird draft where I kept basically the general consensus was after the 4th round, these guys are pretty much undrafted free agents. Don't waste your time on a lot of these picks. Try to get rid of them if you can and try to build for 2022. Maybe the Eagles think that too. Hey, we'd rather have a guy who's proven in here like Nick Mullins, and then we can draft that developmental player in 2022, whether that's at cornerback or live position. Like, I was shocked they claimed Kerryon Johnson off waivers because I actually think he's a pretty decent player. And I'm like, okay, I get it because the Colts like to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, and Marlon Mack when he does come back. And it's going to be the same thing with the Eagles. I think you're going to see Miles Sanders, Kerryon Johnson, Boston Scott, whoever they want to put in there, Kenny Gainwell. So that's where my line of thinking was there. But yeah, it was just a weird year with COVID and a lot of these players getting that extra year of eligibility, staying in school. So I think the Eagles are looking at it as, okay, 2022 is the year we're going to really get younger and develop these guys because they have, 10 draft picks in 2022?
So far, and we'll see how it increases from there. But real quick follow-up, Jeff. What makes you think they're going to be disciplined this year? That's the point. It seems to be a constant cycle. They'll say it after they finish 8-9, as Jody and I predicted. And, hey, we got to get younger. We got to do more of this. And then the same cycle will happen. Are we stuck in NFL purgatories?
It's looking like the only time I ever thought the Eagles actually committed to a rebuild was Andy Reid's first year when they drafted Donovan McNabb, and they had a lot of those draft picks because they were 3-13. They were terrible in '98. I mean, you guys know that. I knew that. Yeah. And that year it was more about getting better, and they were a terrible football team the first half of that season. I remember they just kept building, and they upset the Patriots, they knocked them out of the playoffs, and that Week 17 game against the Rams was essentially meaningless, but they won a big game for them, and they just carried that momentum into 2000. They probably were a year better, when they went 11-5 in 2000, they were probably a lot better than what they actually were. So the rebuild was quicker. But I wish this team kind of would have done that, just given Jalen Hurts the weapons he needed and kind of move forward there. But I think the Eagles are looking at this NFC East is terrible. And the Giants, I think they're fool's gold. I really do. I don't think Daniel Jones is that great. I think their offensive line is god awful. They ain't helping there. Dallas is Dallas. They should win the division, and Washington, they have a great defense, but can we really count on Ryan Fitzpatrick unless they somehow pull off a heist to get Aaron Rodgers? I don't know. I think the Eagles feel the same thing, everybody else does. Hey, maybe 9 or 10 wins the division. We can do that.
Yeah, we'll find out if they can. John and I actually optimistically have them up near 8. I don't think they're going to be an above 500 team. But I will say this in Howie Roseman's defense. A couple of the moves that John was referring to, I thought we were getting younger, and then they make decisions to bring in players who aren't that. They got Ryan Kerrigan on a very expensive contract. Word is, although no one has officially confirmed it, Nick Mullins is here on a league veteran minimum contract.
Oh, no question. Yeah.
They haven't spent money. They haven't hurt themselves cap-wise to do what they have to do, even if they're bringing in someone who keeps them from handing the roster spot to a younger guy. Now, in Nick Mullins' case, I would have given it to a younger. I don't care. I don't even know who that younger guy is. I just wanted to see them go with a younger guy. I don't understand why you bring in a veteran for your third-string quarterback. But could that be the case at the cornerback position? John and I to bring this up on a day-in, day-out basis. When are they going to get the other starting cornerback across from Darius Slay? and another day comes off the calendar, and another day comes off the calendar. Could we be looking at the Michael Jacquet era? Could they actually go with some of the young guys they have on their roster?
His agent will be coming after me on Twitter if I tweet about Michael Jacquet again. That's a funny story. I don't think I've ever told you guys that, but he roasted me on Twitter in week 16. I'm like, you know what your client's doing, right? Like every time they throw the ball his way, he's giving up a catch for a lot of yards. But anyway, I digress there. But yeah, I keep thinking, okay, Steven Nelson would be a guy they look at. I thought maybe Rashad Breeland would be their cheap fix. He went to Minnesota. But I think the Eagles are actually kind of looking to see how the Stephon Gilmore contract plays out, because he's only $7.5 million, and you just don't know. You can get this player on a deal. Maybe you sign him, and you're going to sign a cornerback anyway in free agency next year, and probably draft one because Darius Slay ain't getting any younger. Maybe the Eagles think, hey, you know what? We're number 2 cornerback away from potentially being the best defense of this division. I know they're not. That's obviously Washington, but you start thinking about that, then, obviously my mind's going now, okay, you got Anthony Harris, you got Rodney McLeod, think of Gilmore, think of Slay. Hey, you never know. Maybe they're keeping tabs on that mark, and maybe they feel they can only give up a 2nd or 3rd round pick for the guy.
I love it. Jeff is falling down the rabbit hole. Rosie, you're talking yourself into it. I love it.
I'm just embracing my inner Philadelphia. I keep thinking my teams are actually better than they are, and the Sixers reminded me last night, maybe not.
Yeah, they should be that good. But the Eagles, I don't know. Stephon Gilmore, look, you'd love to have the player, but we're talking about this team from a salary cap standpoint. I think they have a little under $5 million. They still got to sign Landon Dickerson. Jody's worried about that. He's the only person in the world worried about that.
He'll be signed, Jody. Don't worry.
Yeah, they'll be. They can make the move. You can do whatever you want to do. They can do some different things that fit Stephon Gilmore in. From a player perspective, he would help. I said the same thing about Julio Jones. This is just not the time, though. In my essence, this is the time to get those startup costs out of the way for Zach McPherson's of the world. If you believe in him, look, I don't want him to start either. I think it's going to be really, really bad if he starts. But at some point, let's kickstart this developmental process with some of these younger players. That's where I am.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll bring back the 1999 Eagles again. Like, Barry Gardner started. He had no business being on a football field.
Yeah.
His entire time in Philly. But at least the Eagles saw right away what this guy was made of. And they kind of did the same with Jermaine Mayberry when Ray Rhodes drafted him. Remember, he was benched at one point. He was a tackle. Andy Reid moved him to guard, and the rest is history. I felt like a lot of those teams, they played guys, maybe they weren't ready, but then you find a diamond in the rough, like a Jeremiah Trotter. That's what I kept thinking, like a Devion Taylor. Maybe the guy is something, but when Eric Wilson and Alex Singleton in there, where's this guy going to see the field? I just don't know.
That's what I said, Jeff. Real quick. Sorry, Jody. Devion Taylor, I just throw him in the deep end of the pool and say, you know what? Eric Wilson's okay. Alex Singleton's okay, but they're not good enough. Throw him in the deep end of the pool and see if he can play. If he can't, you know it, and then you plug the hole. You put the Band-Aid with Singleton and Wilson, but he's got talent. Let's see. You drafted him. Let's see if he can play.
The only team, I swear, in the NFL that say they really like a player after the draft, we liked him so much we have to get, and actually plays the guy, are Andy Reid and Bruce Arians, and look what they end up with. They end up in the Super Bowl. Like, Howie Roseman said, we love Zach McPherson. We would have taken him in the 3rd round. Well, if you like him that much, play him. Like this isn't minor league baseball here. We only need 5 years to develop these players.
Yeah.
If you think he's good enough in that position's beat, especially, I think he could be a really good slot corner in this league. Play him. I mean, look what Avonte Maddox did his rookie year. He was one of the best nickel cornerbacks in football when you play him.
Things I worry about. Yes, Landon Dickerson not being signed yet. Yes, Zach Ertz still here, even though he's been traded every day for the last, 4, 5, 6 months?
Pretty much as he said he wanted out.
Yes, the Eagles are going to get a true, proven cornerback 2 somewhere in this league one of these days. Still hasn't happened. I'll give you one thing that I'm not worried about that some people are. And that's a 166-pound wide receiver who is going to be the Eagles' #1 wide receiver this year and I think an excellent candidate for Rookie of the Year on the offensive side in the National Football League. I'm sure we asked you about it last time, but let me put it to you again, Jeff. Does the undersized element of Devonta Smith's game, a.k.a. 166 pounds, give you any pause for concern that this kid's going to step in day one and be a star player in this league?
Oh, I think he's going to be absolutely fine. I mean, he's played against NFL cornerbacks in the SEC. He's played against NFL defenders in the SEC. And the guy just doesn't get hurt. I just feel like this Devonta Smith, he has that frame, but I think he really does take care of his body. When I was talking to him prior to the draft, like stuff he does that most normal people don't do. It's, he was telling me about, I mean, obviously he has a deal with Theragun, but he was telling me how he uses Theragun before and after practice. He said, you wouldn't believe what it does to my muscle. And, I can truly believe that because I have a Theragun. I know what it does after I have a run. You feel as good as new. And I feel like that's part of the routine he has to take care of his body. Obviously we're going to worry every time he gets hit hard, but I've seen him get hit hard by Patrick Surtain in practice, and he's been able to get right back up. I don't think it's going to be a problem at all. I'm with you, Jody. I honestly feel he's going to be one of those guys. He's just going to make an instant impact no matter what he does. Like, I don't know if he'll have Justin Jefferson-esque numbers because that's asking a lot, but I think the guy is going to be exciting to watch every time the football's thrown at him.
Yeah, I mean, Devontae won me over, Jeff. Last one from me, and thank you for joining the program as always. He won me over in OTAs because, they're not doing anything out there, bottom line. And he looks different than everybody else. You can tell, okay, this guy's different than any other receiver on the field. And obviously the Eagles drafted a receiver in the first round last year as well in Jalen Reagor. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, a second-round pick. He looks like a different species than those guys. He's just a better player, and it's not close. Yeah. So honestly, my concern is, sorry, Jeff, my concern is the other two receivers. Did the dominoes fall into place because Devonta Smith is so good?
I think it will impact Jalen Reagor significantly. Like when the Eagles drafted Jalen Reagor, I like the pick. I like Justin Jefferson too, but I'm like, okay, I see what they're doing here. They want to get a deep ball threat. They want to get a guy that could be a difference maker in an offense where you honestly felt like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was going to take the next step, and you had other guys on it. You had Deshaun Jackson. That's what I thought they initially drafted Jalen Reagor for. Now you got Devonta Smith in there to take all the attention off the defense. Now Jalen Reagor all of a sudden is that deep threat, and I feel like that's really going to benefit him. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, I don't want to say the guy's a lost cause because I've seen receivers do well in their third year. See Nelson Aguilar, but you just got to show more than what he showed. I mean, there are guys. I think Julio Jones had more catches in a game than J.J. Arcega-Whiteside has had in his career at this point. It's actually kind of sad, but yeah, Jalen Reagor, I'm not giving up hopes on. I think the guy has confidence. I think he has the swagger, if you will, the mentalities to succeed in the NFL. He just needs the opportunity. I thought he was getting that a little bit with Jalen Hurts toward the end of the year. Now you got Devonta Smith lined up, and you're going to put Jalen Reagor in the slot. I think he's going to have, I don't want to say a big second year, but I think he's going to make an impact in this offense.
All right, let's bring it full circle, Jeff. You started by telling us you had a trip to Cooperstown coming up, but you had been to Canton, and you got to see the Eagles Super Bowl championship film shortly after that year. Guy who I'm sure was prominent in that was Nick Foles. What's going to happen with Nick Foles this year? Right now, for me, he's the Bears' third-string quarterback. If you tell me that Justin Fields, who was drafted high in the first round, is going to be the developmental quarterback and sit on the bench and be inactive on game days, I'm telling you the Bears are running the risk of them pulling Soldier Field down from the studs by the fans if he's not even dressed on game day. If Nick Foles is the backup quarterback, it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. What are the Bears going to do? Is there any chance he's traded? Is he going to be released? There are a lot of Nick Foles fans in this town that just love the guy and think he walks on water. Where is he walking on water when the football season starts?
I believe that'll be the New York Jets. They are a team that needs a number 2 quarterback. They need a veteran. Obviously Zach Wilson's going to be the starter there, but you need somebody in case he goes down. And the Jets really don't have one right now. I feel like that's where he's going to end up. It's just funny how Nick Foles succeeds here and doesn't succeed anywhere else. And when Chicago drafted Justin Fields, I wish people would have saw me like in front of my computer. I was doing like the fist pumps. I was like, all right, the Bears actually did something right for once. They actually don't believe Andy Dalton's going to be their starting quarterback, which is awesome. So then I'm starting thinking, okay, Nick Foles is on the hook for $7 million this year. They're really going to keep this guy on the roster? I don't think so. And he probably, it's a shame because I actually thought he was better than Mitchell Trubisky for a little bit last year, and then Trubisky came back and kind of disproved that theory. But yeah, I honestly feel like Nick Foles is going to end up somewhere like the New York Jets. There's going to be a team that needs a backup quarterback. If he would have came here, obviously I would have been ecstatic because the Foles jersey would have, came off from being hung up in the closet. But all kidding aside, it's that chapter in Eagles' life is over. I'm kind of glad he's not back, but I feel like the New York Jets would be a nice little fit for him. The Arizona Cardinals have a backup quarterback now. They have Colt McCoy. I'll tell you one team I think that actually should take a look at him too. Seattle's backup quarterback situation's a mess. I know Russell Wilson never misses a game, but you could live with Nick Foles sitting behind Russell Wilson and just being there. Like, I don't think they would miss a beat if Nick Foles was in Seattle.
Yeah, and Geno Smith. I'm a Jet guy, so I can vouch for the fact that Geno Smith, much like Nick Mullins, should never actually see the field in the National Football League. Again, my quarterback evaluated status. And for you Nick Foles fans out there, maybe it's just a green thing. Being a Jet, it could actually work out. You're right. Once he gets out of Eagle Green, it seems like it always goes badly. Maybe he could actually play well for another team. It just has to be a green team. We shall see. Jeff, we appreciate you coming on board today. Thanks, buddy. We'll tap into you when the season gets a little bit closer. Thanks for this morning.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, guys. John, Jody, enjoy your summer. I hope the Eagles don't drive you guys absolutely insane while they're waiting for that second quarterback.
Already have, Jeff.
Every other day. We'll be here every day wondering when is this the day the Eagles get a CB2. We shall see. Jeff, thank you. That is our buddy Jeff Kerr from CBSSports.com. Go to CBSSports.com and read the article for you Eagle fans who don't know the history of when the Eagles were the first team in the National Football League to have a woman general manager. All right. It actually was the owner's daughter. So there might have been a little nepotism involved there.
Shocking. Nepotism in football, Jody? And it only matters with women. I'm surprised. It's not a problem with guys, but it matters with women. They've been doing that for years. It is the first. It should be. Jeff's right. I'm glad Jeff did the story. It really is kind of tells you how long it's been. And you think about that breaking the glass ceiling, so to speak. And yet we still are where we are in 2021. And Catherine Raish, obviously, Jeffrey Lurie and the Eagles probably didn't even realize they had a woman's GM because obviously this regime wasn't involved in it.
No, and it was a while ago now, but it is a story worth retelling. And Jeff does a really good job with it. All right. It's the Mac and Mac guys. We'll come back. I'm going to give you a name of a guy who I'd like to see the Eagles get as their QB3. Yeah, I know they just got their QB3, but I'm
Nick Foles?
trying to run. Not Nick Foles. I'm going to pass on both Nicks. Right. Not Foles, not Mullins, but there is a guy who I'm just projecting the possibility he could become available if they try and sneak him onto the practice squad. I would put a claim in for him. We'll talk more quarterback here on Birds 365 in just a sec.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
but as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods. the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Mac and Mac guys here with Young Birds 365. John McMullen, Jordan McDonald hanging out. Thank Jeff for hopping on. He's a good guest. I'd never had him on, which is weird because I do shows for CBS Sports Radio, and it was Johnny Mac who asked Jeff to join us for the first time. But a Philly guy with some Philly roots, you can tell when he gives his answers. He's a Philadelphia fan who tries not to show his rooting colors when he comes on, but he can't help himself. So we appreciate him hopping on board. And we had a couple of quarterback questions for him because it is the number one position in the NFL. It's the most important. It's the most talked about. And we were talking about start today because the Eagles signed Nick Mullins as their QB3. Not a big fan of the signing. I don't think Nick Mullins can play a little bit. I think the Eagles would be better served with a developmental quarterback rather than a guy who, I know he's only in his fourth year in the league, but he's already had the chance. He's jumped in. He's played.
By the way, Jody, I just figured out before the break why I like the Nick Mullins signing so much.
Oh, so much now. So I was accurate when I said earlier about your...
It's a little bit of a bit because it finally shuts the door on Nick Foles. I don't have to talk Nick Foles anymore. The Eagles have 3 quarterbacks, and they have entrenched quarterbacks with Joe Flacco and Nick Mullins. So no more Nick Foles. We could talk about it with the Jets. We could talk about it with the Seahawks, the Bears, anybody else. No more Nick Foles.
Despite the fact that you'll talk about anybody other than Nick Foles, I do want to talk about someone that I could see the Eagles. I would like to see the Eagles make a play for. Now, a couple of things would have to happen for this person to come into play, but I can actually project at least a possibility of it. And then if I were the Eagles, I would immediately claim him and give Nick Mullins a pair of tickets back out to the West Coast. Thanks much for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed your cheesesteaks. Go back to the other coast. The team that I'm looking at, because to get a guy who you think is a developmental quarterback, you need to have an entrenched, big-time, he's going to be the quarterback for the next several years, if not a decade, in place. And then you have to have a number 2 guy that the team has made a specific decision about. Either he's been a backup before or they went out and signed him as a free agent. And then you got the third guy who at one point they may have had higher aspirations for him, but because of certain developments, those aspirations have lessened. It's the Buffalo Bills that I'm looking at. Because we know they've got their starting quarterback, and he's one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. He established himself as that last year. During the offseason, they went out and got Mitch Trubisky. They're hoping a change of scenery for Mitch Trubisky is going to do wonders for him. I don't know if it is or isn't, but at least they were the team that was most aggressive to go out and get Trubisky, and he did sign there where you would have thought there were other places he could have landed where he might even have a chance to compete for the job, not be handed it, but at least a competition's going to be up. That's not happening in Buffalo. So they had to like the kid and sell him on the fact that they're bringing him in to Buffalo for a reason. Sitting on the Buffalo bench, he did not get into a game last year. They used Matt Barkley as their backup quarterback last year in Buffalo. We know Matt Barkley here a little bit in Philadelphia, and I'm not a big Matt Barkley fan either, but yet he was the guy that Buffalo called on when they had to put their backup quarterback into the game. They never actually got Jake Fromm into a game last year. They used a draft pick on him last year. Fromm never did play. I'm guessing the organization was not wowed or that they had certain expectations and he didn't live up to them. I was surprised he wasn't their backup quarterback this past year. They've had Davis Webb on their roster for the last couple of years, former Giant, former Jet, who they kind of hit on their practice squad the last couple of years. Maybe there's something about Davis Webb they like. I did get to see enough of Davis Webb. He does nothing for me. But Jake Fromm, if they try and put him on the practice squad this year, if you were the Philadelphia Eagles, would you claim a Jeff Fromm and cut a Nick Mullins?
Well, I have to see. Number one, I have to see where Nick Mullins is from an elbow standpoint. As I said, he's coming off elbow surgery in January. Originally, people thought it was going to be Tommy John surgery, and he'd be out for the entire year. And that's one of the reasons he wasn't signed until he was signed. Ultimately, it was a less serious procedure, and he's going to be ready for training camp. So, number one, if he's not healthy, I'll say I'll look at everybody. Jake Fromm and every other player that hits the waiver wire. If he can't play, he can't play. If he can't throw, he can't throw. If the Nick Mullins from pre-elbow surgery shows up and he's healthy and he's ready to go and the procedure worked and he's completely clear, no, I'm not going to worry myself about Jake Fromm, about a fifth-round pick who hasn't played. It always depends on evaluation. If the Eagles loved him coming out of the draft, maybe they would take a look at it. But I would say he got drafted in the fifth round. If they loved him so much, they might have pulled that trigger a little bit earlier in the fourth round, third round, what have you.
Well, no, because they had already taken Jalen Hurts in the second round. You're not going to take Jalen Hurts in the second round and turn around and take Jake Fromm in the third or fourth.
Yeah. So, but my point is they decided on their quarterback. They decided on their developmental quarterback, Jody. Unfortunately, the plan didn't work because the starting quarterback shit the bed, for lack of a better term. So all of a sudden, the developmental guy, your plan is now the starter. And we talked about they already have a developmental quarterback because he's still developing, is your starting quarterback. And they've gone the route of surrounding him with veteran guys who've done it before, seen that, done that. Joe Flacco at a higher level, certainly than Nick Mullins, but both have played in NFL games. Both have won NFL games. That's the plan. I think that plan is – I don't think the plan is to go with another uncertainty who's never played before in Jake Fromm. I understand your theory. If Joe Flacco was the starter and he was still playing at a high level, and I'm not trying to say there's any competition because there isn't. I'm saying Joe Flacco in Baltimore before the ACL surgery. I'm saying he's your entrenched starting quarterback, and you brought in Nick Mullins to be your backup. Then I'd say, yeah, why not? Take a flyer. Take a flyer, Jake Fromm. Take a flyer on anybody who's on the waiver wire. I don't care. But for their plan, I think their plan – because their starting quarterback is a developmental quarterback, I think they're going about it the right way. Surround them with professionals. Surround them with guys who know how to do the job. And more than playing, more than on the field, the off the field stuff. Guys who've been through it, guys who know how the NFL works. Sounding boards, as I said. One of the things I think they should have given to Nick Sirianni, which, by the way, I can't believe we're an hour plus into this show, Jody. And I have not said happy birthday to the coach of this football team.
Oh, Mr. Birthday. How could you not get that out there?
Happy 40th birthday, Nick Sirianni. Boy, man, all week I've been talking about it, and I forgot about it this morning. 40, Jody. 40. As I said, you turn the page from 39 to 40. Now you can stop worrying about wisdom and experience. He's got it all.
It's a miracle. It just shows up on your 40th birthday. Well, maybe you'll get some knuckles next time you're out there on the grass with Nick Sirianni for wishing him happy 40th. I wish him happy 40th too, but John is much more moved and motivated by it. But this is one of those that you and I are just not going to agree on.
No.
Nick Mullins brings nothing to the table. His experience. Ooh, you need his experience. You need him to lift Jalen Hurts.
I don't think you need it.
He's going to teach him how to lose in the National Football League. No, thank you.
I think they developed a plan. I think their plan makes some sense to have a young quarterback sort of buttressed in the quarterback room with veteran quarterbacks, as opposed to the other end. Whereas if you have a veteran quarterback, yeah, I would want the developmental guy. They already have a developmental quarterback, is what I'm trying to say. He happens to be the starter.
Yeah. Well, once, and you and I look at that differently. Once you become the starting quarterback, and don't start with me, yeah, I know Nick Sirianni hasn't named him the starting quarterback. We all know he's the starting quarterback. Once you've established yourself as the starting quarterback, which I believe he has, the word developmental is no longer attached to your name. When you're the starter, you're not developmental
quarterback. I think every quarterback that was drafted, Zach Wilson is a developmental quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, every single one of them. I don't say just because they tag the label starter on you, you know they have to develop, Jody. Come on. They're developmental quarterbacks. Nobody as a rookie in the NFL is not a developmental quarterback. You might have more talent than the seventh rounder. You might have a better chance to succeed, but man, you got to develop. Trevor Lawrence has got to develop. He's not stepping into Jacksonville as a star player who knows everything about playing the quarterback position in the NFL.
I'm not saying knowledge, but I'm saying expectations are, yeah, you're supposed to be able to do things that can win football games for your team. And I don't believe when your quarterback touchdown interception ratio is basically 1-to-1 like Nick Mullins is, that doesn't get it done. He's not developing into anything. He's a
he's not. I'm not
quarterback in this league.
He's a backup quarterback in this league, but there's a role for backup quarterbacks in this league. There aren't 32 starters in this league. By definition, there's going to be 32 guys showing up on week 1 of the NFL season labeled as starting quarterbacks, but they're not starting level quarterbacks. The bottom 5 or 6 could even be more. They're bad, and they probably shouldn't be starting in this league. There's a role for backup quarterbacks in this league, and you would rather have a competent backup quarterback like Nick Foles. I just wanted to turn the page on him. I'm going back to him. Look, Nick Foles isn't a starting quarterback in this league. Probably never was, to be honest, and that'll rankle some Eagles fans to you know what. But he was a high-level backup, and if you needed him to win a game, as the Eagles needed him to win a number of games, and he got it done for him, that's an important piece to have. And we go all the way back to quarterback factory again. That's what Howie was talking about. That's what he walked back. We value this position. We value this position to the point that we want somebody who's a backup that can play. They did it with Jalen Hurts. They did it with Joe Flacco, just different ways, young guy versus old guy. They did it with Josh McCown, oldest guy of all. They did it with Nick Foles. It's usually the veteran more than the rookie. And to be honest, that's probably the way you want to go, because when you're talking about backup quarterbacks, Jody, you're not talking about the Rams situation where they had bingo on Kurt Warner, where somebody can just go, Trent Green gets injured early in the season and you go on and the guy turns into a Super Bowl winning quarterback and a Hall of Famer. I mean, that's like winning the lottery. That never happens. What you're looking for is somebody goes down late in the season, more the Nick Foles, Jeff Hostetler type situations. Can somebody come in there and keep your head above water and even go to the biggest stage of all and not be overwhelmed? That's what you're looking for. That's what you want. Generally, that's not going to be a young quarterback, to be honest.
Well, I'll play for the lottery ticket. You mentioned the Rams with Kurt Warner coming in and taking over and becoming a Hall of Fame level quarterback. It was 20 years ago now, but the New England Patriots used a 6th-round draft pick on a kid out of Michigan who was also buried as the 3rd stringer on the Patriot bench his rookie year. And then he moved up to the number 2 spot, and then Drew Bledsoe went down, and the legend of Tom Brady began. Yeah, I want to roll the dice on that. I know there are many more by the wayside stories than Kurt Warner and Tom Brady, but Kurt Warner and Tom Brady happened. I guarantee you Nick Mullins is not that guy. That's not happening here in Philadelphia. It's never going to play out that way, that if Jalen Hurts starts, isn't good enough, or gets hurt, Joe Flacco comes in, doesn't get the job done, is just looking like an older gentleman who can't play in the league. And then Nick Mullins gets his chance leading the Philadelphia Eagles. And before you know it, there is a new sheriff in town. It's not happening with Nick Mullins. I'd rather take a guy who very well might never be able to do what Nick Mullins did, but has the potential, the possibility of becoming the man here in Philadelphia. That's what I'd rather have as my 3rd string quarterback.
Well, Jody, I agree with you 100%. I guarantee you as well that Nick Mullins is not the next Tom Brady, is not the next Kurt Warner. But I'm going to go one farther. I also guarantee you Jake Fromm isn't as well. I feel comfortable.
You don't know that.
I do. I know it. You might not know it, but I know it.
Based on what evidence? What has Jake Fromm done wrong in the league?
I've seen him
you
play
can make
at Florida.
That statement, because I've got evidence that Nick Mullins can't. It's called 5-12 and 22 touchdown passes and 21 interceptions. There's evidence that Nick Mullins isn't that guy. There's no evidence that Jake Fromm isn't yet.
You're confident in your evidence that Nick Mullins is not going to be the next Tom Brady. By the way, I'm laughing at this, that we even put those two in the same sentence. So I agree with you. But I'm very confident in the evidence I do have that Jake Fromm playing at Georgia and beating out Justin Fields and the evaluation process of what he went through. I'm very, very confident in my evidence that Jake Fromm isn't going to be a starting quarterback in this league. Never mind the greatest quarterback of all time. I'm very confident in that.
Okay. I'd rather roll him out there sight unseen in the National Football League. He's never played a down in the NFL.
Well,
remember last year?
Jody.
There was no preseason games played, so we never actually got to see him play. The unknown of Jeff Fromm is better than the known of Nick Mullins.
Jody, the unknown of Jake Fromm is better than Nick Mullins is a legitimate argument that I can listen to. That Jake Fromm might be the next Tom Brady is not a legitimate argument. And that's where I'm very comfortable saying that's not going to happen. I'm also very comfortable saying it's not going to happen for Nick Mullins. So it ultimately comes down, which again is the more valid discussion. Would you rather have Nick Mullins or would you rather have Jake Fromm? For this team at this particular time, I think they made the right decision. You could be right. Jake Fromm's better than Nick Mullins. But yeah, I'm not going to listen to Jake Fromm's the next Tom Brady or the next Kurt Warner. Never mind Tom Brady.
The potential of Jake Fromm becoming the next Tom Brady is 0.0001. The potential of Nick Mullins becoming the next Tom Brady is 0.000000001. And I'm playing to those odds. I know both of those odds suck, but I will play to the lesser of the two.
I'll get Alec Hallaby, hopefully. I'll talk to Alec Hallaby.
Tell him to run some numbers on that one for
analytics.
me. I need a little analytical help here with my point.
Maybe we can get Bill James on the show. What they would tell you, Jody, is that is completely statistically insignificant.
No, I don't believe that.
It's insignificant. When you get to 0.0000 and however many zeros you want on there, statistically, that is insignificant. Point being, they're both not in the conversation. You can guarantee it. You can feel comfortable in your first guarantee. You can feel comfortable in my guarantee. Feel very, very comfortable. I'm more comfortable saying that Nick Mullins is not going to be Tom Brady and Jake Fromm's not going to be Tom Brady than Landon Dickerson is going to sign. And I'm very comfortable on that. I'm very comfortable on that.
Until it happens, we'll just hold out on the possibility. All right, we'll take a quickie time out here on Birds 365. Scheduled to join us next is Bob Glauber, tremendous football writer, been doing it for years for Newsday up in New York. Also football author. It's got a great football book out as well. Bob Glauber, scheduled to join us next here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Mag and Mac guys here with you on Birds 365. We appreciate you hopping aboard with us. We appreciate our next guest hopping aboard with us. His first time on Birds 365. Won't be his last if we can convince him to come back. We don't beat him up too bad this time. Outstanding football writer. He's been doing it for Newsdays in New York for years. And football author. Last time, the book that he wrote, he was good enough to send me a copy of Guts and Genius, his three-coach football mantra with three of the all-time greatest in the history of NFL coaching. Bob Glauber jumps aboard with us here on Birds 365. How are you, Bobby G?
I'm good. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, Bob. And also congratulations on the PFWA, Pro Football Writers of America Career Achievement Award. So that under your belt as well. So congratulations on that. I do want to steer the direction quickly to James Jones, because James is breaking news lately. First to Neil Hunter in Minnesota. Now he's telling everybody to relax with Aaron Rodgers. Is he correct?
I think he is correct. I think at the end of the day, when that day will be, we don't know. Aaron Rodgers will be under center for the Green Bay Packers this season. It's just a matter of getting from here to there, which is a big deal. I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff that has kind of gone on simmering, I would say. It's, Aaron Rodgers is not an in-your-face kind of guy. He's very understated, but he lets you know how he feels, right? When he says it's a people business, he says it's a people's business. That means, hey, this guy over here stinks, right? And you know who I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So I think it'll get worked out. What has to happen is, and really what the final result will be, is how long they're going to sign him to, if they do extend him, contract wise. Otherwise, if there's nothing done, I would think this would be his last year.
I was surprised actually I've been surprised twice in the last couple of weeks, where the Green Bay Packers have said things publicly that just seem to antagonize Aaron Rodgers. Why would you make an analogy of a former executive used to say, well, he's a complicated fella. So leave it at that. Aaron Rodgers is a complicated. Why would you pick a fight with your quarterback if you want to resolve the issues that you have with him by making a public statement like that? What was Mark May thinking?
Yeah. He is obviously on the spot here. And, Murphy is a very thoughtful guy, former player, former union chief, and now president of the Green Bay Packers. And he's got a lot riding on this. So I think, the incendiary word there was not complicated. It was fella. He's a complicated fella, isn't he? Like a little guy. And Mark Murphy was going against his own advice and that is, hey, when you have a situation like this, the less said, the better. And there's no doubt that the less said, the better. Let this thing kind of go on behind the scenes. And it has been going on behind the scenes. That, I think, is worth remembering, that they have made several trips out to see Aaron Rodgers in person. They have tried to work this out through his agent. And, it's been one thing after another in terms of behind the scenes stuff. But, Rodgers has been there a long time. He has carried that franchise. And I think a lot of quarterbacks, and I've seen it in New York with Phil Simms. I've seen it with Joe Montana and Steve Young. They get not so much Young because he didn't play all that much, but they get to what I call quarterback middle age. And there's a certain spot, and Brady had a little bit in New England. There's a certain time in your career when you've accomplished a lot, you've won championships, and you get a little bit disillusioned. You have your ideas, and if they're not listening to them, you get a little frustrated, and you say, you know what, maybe the grass is a little greener. And you're seeing that more now. I think Tom Brady opened the floodgates with what he did. Now, he played 20 years in New England and worked out a deal where he could be a free agent after 20. So he gave whatever he had. But I think that has really changed the landscape, that quarterbacks more and more are now going to look to determine, where their future lies. And I think Rodgers is in that group now.
Bob, that's an interesting sort of way to phrase it, quarterback middle age. It seemed to be happening in Seattle with Russell Wilson a little bit, but they seem to have kissed and made up, at least for the short term. How difficult is it to deal with these quarterbacks in a more, I don't want to say it's NBA-like, but there certainly seems to be more player empowerment as we move forward in the NFL?
Yeah, I think the Seahawks did a good job of being quiet. Now, Pete Carroll is one of the most talkative guys that you're ever going to find in the NFL, but he kept it close to the vest. He never said anything antagonistic about Russell Wilson, and everything public that he said is, hey, he's our quarterback. We still believe in him. You know, we want to work this out if there's anything to be worked out. And he didn't even have to say that. So they played it smart. Now, I think the NFL is becoming a little bit, there's an NBA, a little bit of a dynamic going on. I don't think it'll ever be total NBA because there are so few players in the NBA and difference makers are just so unusual and rare. And when they, when LeBron wants to do something, he does it, and the world follows, and things change, the landscape changes. It's just not that way in football because there's so many players, and players do come and go. So I think that it will be safe from that point of view, in terms of there won't be this willy-nilly movement going on. But then again, this quarterback class, a merry-go-round, has been unprecedented, in part because of quarterbacks wanting to determine their own future. There was some, like the trade from Los Angeles. Stafford had enough in Detroit. So there is that, but I don't think it's going to fundamentally change the NFL. But you're going to see this, a little bit more as we go along.
In these type situations, you have the quarterback, you have the team he plays for, you have their relationship, there are issues, there are hurdles, and then you have where the Houston Texans are at with Deshaun Watson. There's a third party there, and it's called courts. It's called civil court and lawsuits and the like, which makes it that much more difficult to decipher. And the NFL has to take a stand in this as well because they're doing their own investigation, but they don't necessarily want to come out with a stance till after court cases are settled. Mm-hmm. In other words, it's a big mess down there in Houston. Is camp the only thing that will push the information and the stuff that we need to know along? Is this just going to sit out there and fester until someone has to make a decision, be it Deshaun Watson showing up, be it the Texans asking to have him put on a suspended list, be it the NFL acting? How does this shake out? Do we just sit here for the next month and wait to find out?
Yeah, Jody, I think we sit here for the next month and wait to find out. Nick Caserio basically, threw out that tidbit yesterday and saying, there will be a decision made before training camp. I suspect the way it's going and the way the NFL has acted before, that he ends up on the commissioner's exempt list. And maybe the NFL looks to the opening of training camp as a marker to say, okay, camp's going to start. We have something going on here. We're going to make a decision. I don't know that they have, Roger Goodell has suspended players before the court cases have been completed. So he has that, remedy if he so chooses to use it. So I do think that, he has played his last down in Houston, and I suspect, all things considered, that he would end up on the commissioner's exempt list, and then maybe they would try to work out a trade. So, the trade potential is, if there's a team out there, and Denver has been mentioned as a place that he wouldn't mind playing, that is willing to make a trade, I think that would happen. But there's no guarantee that a trade would mean that he comes off that list. So I think right now it's looking at he will just be sitting and waiting for something to happen court-wise or NFL investigation-wise, and in the meantime be on that exempt list.
Yeah, Bob, you mentioned Nick spoke yesterday, so that was going to be my next question as well. So I'll kind of phrase it this way. Because I agree with you, the most likely scenario is commissioner's exempt list at the start of training camp. However, does another team like Denver, or we're in Philadelphia, whisper, does somebody look at this as an opportunity to get a super talented potential top 5 quarterback for pennies on the dollar? Would a team in this league take that risk? That's
a really good question, John, and I hesitate to answer because it's it's complicated. I don't know that. I think a team would have to go to the NFL and quietly ask, look, we're interested in trading for Deshaun Watson. Tell us what would happen if we do make the trade. What is the adjudication of this case? When would he be able to play, basically? So if a team gets the message from the NFL that, we could see it lasting the entire year, that we don't know. And then on top of that, if a suspension is handed down, we've seen that before, players on the exempt list, then a suspension is handed down. So he's going into 2022 not being able to play. He'd be able to practice, but wouldn't be able to play in games. That's a little dicey. So I think it would be probably if a team looking into a trade gets the vibe that he's not going to be let back on the field, I don't think you'd make that trade, even with pennies on the dollar, because you're talking about, you're going to go an entire year not having a guy and go through a season with, the starting quarterback answering questions about, what's my future going to be? So I would think that I would lean against that at this point, assuming that he's going to not be allowed to play for a fairly prolonged period of time.
Bob, interesting situation we have coming up this year in the NFC East or the NFC least, depending on how you want to describe it before the season gets underway. We've got two teams with quarterbacks that will be given a chance, starting job. It's all theirs. Go out and kill it. But if they don't, the teams seem to look to be ready to go in another direction. And that would be the Eagles. And at least for my money, the New York Giants, because I have not been wowed by Daniel Jones at all. I know they used a high first-round pick to get him, but his play has not excited me. They have upgraded the weapons around him this upcoming year. So it looks to me like with Jones, it's a make it or break it year. I know that's the case with the quarterback here in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts. They're going to give him this year. They're rooting him home. They want him to prove he's a franchise quarterback. But if he's not, the Eagles have certain things in place that they can make a change.
I think it's a fair read, Jody, and I think it's an accurate read. Hurts, it is a make or break for both of them. And, if you want to say, hey, should we say make or break for Ryan Fitzpatrick? Just kidding.
It's always make or break. It's the 10th consecutive year of make or break for Ryan Fitzpatrick.
He's great. But I think, like, Hurts has a little less it's a little more tenuous with him, to me. Second round pick, not as invested in terms of that. I love Jalen Hurts as a competitor. Loved him at Alabama, how he handled himself, and he just all class. And you root for a guy like that. I just don't know about the talent. The NFL talent level of a Jalen Hurts. Can it sustain him? I think the answer is no right now, but show me. Daniel Jones, they drafted him in the top 10. They have invested a fortune in weapons around him. Kenny Golladay being the most recent, and Kadarius Toney as a first-round pick, a wide receiver. So this is make or break for Daniel Jones, in my opinion. And even if they say, and Joe Judge has played this one very smart, he has defended his quarterback at all times. He knows that, though, that you've got to produce here, especially when everything around you is made to succeed. Saquon Barkley coming back. The offensive line, a little bit of a question, but those two situations are absolutely worth monitoring. Just a bit of a different dynamic because of where they were drafted and where the upside is with each of those guys.
Nationally, Bob, not much is expected with the Philadelphia Eagles. You know what power rankings are this time of year and what they're worth. But nonetheless, a number of high-profile people have them bottom 5. Maybe if they're being really optimistic, they'll put them at 23, 24. Does it just come down to the coach and the quarterback? Nick Sirianni, happy birthday again, turns 40 today. Little bit out there from an energy level. How is that playing nationally? And then you mentioned a little bit about Hurts. Is it just come down to people don't believe in the coach and the quarterback when it comes to the Eagles?
I think it's pretty much it. Sirianni is just an unknown entity. Nobody heard of him. Now, nobody heard of Andy Reid before he got there, and he did, he went on to a Hall of Fame career. So, this can happen. And just because you haven't heard of someone doesn't mean they can't succeed. Now, Sirianni with that first press conference is off to a little bit of a rocky start. And, it takes a little time to get over that in terms of nationally. The guys around him, you see, okay, he's going to settle into it. But it is a league of coaches and quarterbacks, John and Jody, that it's just gotten to that more and more over the years when offenses are carrying the day in terms of how games are played. Back in the day, defenses, Buddy Ryan's teams against Bill Parcells' teams. That's what's going to determine that which defense plays better. It's just not that way anymore. So it is a league of coaches and quarterbacks. Questions about both for the Eagles, and I don't think those questions will be answered until in a positive way, until they can actually go out and prove that they can win games and win games consistently in what is right now a very weak division.
Let me follow up on one of the two individuals that you touched on as per John's question. That's head coach Nick Sirianni. Again, Bob wrote a book a couple of years back, Guts and Genius, following Bill Parcells, Bill Walsh, and Joe Gibbs, three guys who went on to have Hall of Fame coaching careers. But you did start with their humble beginnings as head coaches in the National Football League. Walsh was known because of his collegiate achievements. Gibbs, not so much. Parcells outside of New York, probably not so much. Is there any link you can make to these guys, to Nick Sirianni, that sometimes unknown is a good thing, that you kind of sneak up on everybody and before you know it, you're a Hall of Fame coach? I know I'm reaching here, but I'm trying for Nick Sirianni's sake on his birthday.
That's okay. Happy birthday, Nick Sirianni. And, yes, years ago, before you were born, there were three coaches who were came from out of nowhere and on the Hall of Fame career. So hold on to that one. All right. When you blow out the candles, think of those guys. But Jody, it's true. Those guys, that's why they call them unlikely coaches. And people say, well, how could you call them unlikely? Well, no, they're not unlikely now. They're in the Hall of Fame, of course. Yeah. But at the time, Joe Gibbs is 0-5 his first season. Bill Parcells goes 3-12-1. They are ready to fire him if Howard Schnellenberger is available contractually. And Bill Walsh went 2-14. He thought he was going to get fired midway through his second season. So, and that's back when the pressure wasn't as much as it is now. So you need a little patience. Now, those guys had patience. It was different NFL. You could build your teams differently and more patiently. It is now instantaneous in this league. It's what have you done for me today, times 10. So Sirianni absolutely has his work cut out for him. Frank Reich, I'm sure, has told him everything about what he's going to face as a head coach and as a head coach in Philadelphia. There's nothing quite like it. I think it's tougher to coach in Philadelphia than it is in New York. I truly do, because of the intensity, the expectation, the attention that is paid on that team compared to, it's spread out a little bit in New York. There's 9 pro teams. In football season, it's the Eagles and everybody else. And it's very tough, very intense. Andy Reid was a special guy to be able to kind of weather it, come through it. And then by the end, he was done. He knew it. The team knew it. And then he goes on and builds it back up. He's going to the Hall of Fame.
Bob, obviously you're in New York, so you're closest to a second-year head coach and a rookie head coach with the Giants and Jets. So how are things going for Joe and Robert? What do you see from them as far as developing on the job? Obviously very early for Jody's Jets.
Yeah, well, Saleh, I think, is going to be a quality head coach. The question is, how does he attack that learning curve like there is for every head coach? He's a smart guy. Players like him. Players gravitate toward him. He's a good defensive influence. He's not calling plays, which I think helps him to kind of manage the entire team. That was a huge problem for Adam Gase. Guys, you would never have believed watching practice with an Adam Gase coach team. He spent all the time with the offense. Did not even talk to Greg Williams. It was so weird. And that was traumatizing to the ownership. And they wanted a CEO. Now, nobody's a CEO. You develop into that. But Saleh is willing to just say, all right, I won't call the plays. Jeff Ulbrich will do it. So I think he's going to be good. And, Zach Wilson, if he's good, this is going to be a combination that we'll see for a long time. Judge really acquitted himself very well last year. He's, being a Philly guy, he knows what the deal is. He's got that toughness mentality. He loves the Giants as a franchise, after, purging himself of his childhood allegiances. But he's a straight shooter, and he has earned the respect of the team, the fans, and the media as well, because he'll just go out there and take it. He's the same guy every day, and that's very, very helpful for his situation.
Knowing your coaching expertise and your ability to know what has happened, what can happen, what will happen, I'll give you this question. Will we ever see Doug Peterson on an NFL sideline again? Nice when you've got a Super Bowl ring, and that's a pretty damn big accomplishment. You always love to get that second one unceremoniously let go here in Philadelphia. Is getting paid this year, doesn't have to sweat it. But do you think Dougie P gets another NFL head coaching job at some point down the line?
I would say yes, Jody. I think there's a lot to like in Doug Peterson. Look, we all saw how it went, it went off the rails, and it was terrible by the end. He had lost control, but I think in the right situation, like an Andy Reid, where he gets, synced up with the front office, and there is an energy and a synergy there that helps him. So I think coaching wise, man, that was as aggressive a coach during that Super Bowl year. That was as good a coaching job as there has been in the NFL, winning with a backup like that and beating a coach for the ages and a team for the ages and scoring at will. That was like a 7-on-7 drill, for God's sake. And I think that the Patriots learned a little bit that, their defensive problems really haunted them. But I got to believe that if he gets rested and recharged, and there is a situation that is I would say a veteran general manager who kind of can weather a few bumps early on, would take a Doug Peterson, and I suspect that he will coach again.
Bob, you brought up something interesting. I want to go down because you did write the book. It Father's Day coming up, so I want to plug it again. It's been out for a while, but it's a great book, Guts and Genius, story of three unlikely coaches, Bill Parcells, Bill Walsh, Joe Gibbs. So everybody should pick it up. But you mentioned CEO coaches, Bob. I've always been, from the outside looking in, I've always said, why aren't there more CEO coaches? And it was Tom Coughlin who told me, you can't be a CEO immediately because you got to put your imprint on the organization. To me, it makes more sense for a young coach to encompass everything and make sure everybody's doing what they wanted to do. You just mentioned Adam Gase. Where am I wrong on that? Why aren't there more CEO coaches from the get-go?
There's a couple of reasons, John. One is that coaches are hired for what they have done and what their specialty has been. And it's trending much more toward offensive coaches. So an offensive coach is going to get hired because he was good with his quarterback. He was good with his offense. And that's what you want. I go back to, and I'm going to go back to Mike Holmgren, and he said something very interesting about that. So the coach has that kind of specialty that he wants to impart, and you can't do that as a CEO. You're giving it, no matter how much influence you have, you're not calling the plays if you're the CEO. You've got to trust your offensive coordinator. And the second thing is that, you've got to be able to adjust. There's so many things that come at you as a head coach. You can have 20 things written down on a piece of paper that this is what I want to accomplish today. And then 5 things are going to happen that came from out of the blue. So it's just a dizzying set of circumstances. And I think coaches take a while. Now I go back to Holmgren, and he said something very interesting that he believes to this day. And I think a lot of him. He's a very thoughtful guy. And he says of coaches, offensive coaches in particular, do not give up play calling. That is what got you there. Gut it out, withstand the pressure, and trust what's inside yourself. And don't, succumb to that push to be the CEO. That's what got you there. Go with what you know, and it'll work out better from there. So I think there is something to that. Now, every coach develops differently over time. like Walsh had to call plays, and it literally drove him insane. I mean, he was a genius. He was brilliant, but it short-circuited his mind. You know, you just can't do it over a long period of time. You know, Vermeil burned himself out every time. I think about that time when he had the epiphany when he had to quit. You know that one?
I don't. Give us that one.
Oh. Well, and I confirmed this with him. He was just burning out toward the end, and he didn't have a lot of time, and he had to go to the bathroom, and he was eating lunch, and he brought a hoagie into the bathroom, and he's sitting down doing his business, eating a hoagie and saying, "What the hell am I doing?" That was the moment he realized he had to get out.
Did you actually find out where the hoagie was from? Because that could tell us a whole bunch if we knew if it was Wawa, if it was.
It wasn't Wawa, that's for sure. Wawa didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
I mean, and I had to, you know, how about hey, Coach, I gotta ask you something. I gotta confirm something. Is this true? He goes, yeah, it's true. That was great.
That is.
I love Dick Vermeil. But it just shows you the intensity of coaching, and that's way back when he was ahead of his time in terms of bringing attention to the burnout factor. So there's just a lot that goes into it, John, and you want to be a CEO, you want to overlook everything, but you know you have to be mindful of what got you there.
Bobby, great stuff. We appreciate you hopping on board with us today. You know we're going to tap into you during the season when the Eagles and the Giants are getting prepared for an NFC East war this upcoming year. Thanks for joining us today. We'll talk again down the road.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
That is Bob Glauber from Newsday. Been covering the league forever, Hall of Fame voter, and gave us a good Dick Vermeil story going out the door.
That's a great story.
That always scores points with Eagles fans. If you got a good Dick Vermeil story to sell, you will always be welcome back here on Birds 365. All right, McMullen and McDonald, the last couple of minutes, we'll come back, put a bow on the show. Keep it here.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
All right, clock's ticking on us here on Birds 365. McDonald and McMullen hanging with you. Thanks to Bob Glauber for coming on. Bob's a good dude. I've been having him on as a guest for years when I was up in New York covering the Giants. Always good to get Glauber on to get his big blue opinions. We got his overall opinion today on the National Football League. And I liked his opinion on Dougie P. Because, yes, Bob wrote this great book about coaches and getting off to slow starts and becoming Hall of Famers. Hopefully that is Nick Sirianni with you with the Eagles. But I did want to get his take on Doug Peterson. John, see if you can follow my line of logic here. It's a veritable lock that Doug Peterson is going to get another coaching job in the National Football League. Why is that?
The Lombardi Trophy. It still covers cachet, man. That is cachet. When you win one of those things, people take that seriously. And somebody other than Jeffrey Lurie will say, I'm going to bring a Super Bowl winning coach into my building.
You are probably right, but I'm going to go another reason, as a matter of fact. Who is the first head coach that Jeff Lurie had when he bought the Philadelphia Eagles?
Who was here before Ray? Rich Kotite?
Rich Kotite. And it didn't end well.
No.
Yet he did get another shot as a head coach, did he not?
Yes, he did. The New York Jets. Yes, you're close.
One of the low points of my life.
But
okay.
Times have changed, though. I hear what you're saying. Rich Kotite won some games here, too, by the way.
He did.
He was much better here than he was with the Jets.
Oh, yeah.
But I hear what you're saying. He was wholly unprepared. By the way, who would you say is a Jets fan worse, Kotite or Gase?
It's a flat-footed tie.
It's tough. I would go Gase because he was just so maddenly just clueless about how to do the easy parts of the job. I think Rich wasn't a very good coach. I think Adam Gase was like bad at everything else, including coaching, as far as dealing with people, dealing with players, just everything. It's weird.
Gase was actually more painful because, yes, he had a power base that Kotite never had, and he just turned his nose up at it and was a jerk about it. So, yeah, he was more painful, but they were both just hideously bad as head coaches. But Kotite, despite losing his job here, got another shot, followed by Ray Rhodes, who won when he first took over here, eventually went bad, got fired, did get another shot. People forget that the Packers hired him.
Yeah.
His 1 year stay in Green Bay, they were actually 8-8. They weren't terrible, but he got all of 1 year, and then the Packers moved on from him. He was followed by Andy Reid, who was here for a very long period of time, and got another head coach.
Well, you knew he was getting another spot.
Worked pretty damn well for Andy Reid, did it not? And then he was followed by Chip Kelly, who got unceremoniously pushed out the door here. And what happened? He immediately got another coaching job. Much to my disbelief, the 49ers snapped him up immediately.
By the way, Jody, that was unbelievable. That not only that Chip got a second chance, but he got a second chance right away.
Boom.
Right away. That was unbelievable. I still can't explain that one.
Nor could I. So I am telling you, it is only a matter of time before I'm talking about under the Jeff Lurie ownership. Rich Kotite got another chance. Ray Rhodes got another chance. Andy Reid got another chance. Even Chip Kelly got another chance. Oh, yes, Doug Peterson at some point is going to get another chance. And I think most of Eagle Nation will be rooting wholeheartedly for him.
Well, if Rich Kotite got a second chance, Ray Rhodes got a second. And by the way, Ray was a pretty good coach. I don't want to put him in that category. But Chip Kelly and his inability to deal with people get a second chance. Can you imagine if Doug Peterson doesn't get a second chance? How weird would that be?
Right. The only one to actually accomplish, which is the goal year in and year out, win the Super Bowl. One of them got it done. His name, Doug Peterson. He's got to get another chance. And by the way, on Ray Rhodes, I don't know if I've ever said this with you on Birds 365. I know I've said it on various other broadcast outlets I have. All the years I've been here in Philadelphia, on the air, even New York, put all my stuff together. The coach who gave the best speech the day that he was hired for me was Ray Rhodes.
Not Nick Sirianni?
Not Nick Sirianni, sorry. I sitting in the WIP studios, I really wanted to go put pads and a helmet on and go out and run to a wall from Ray Rhodes. He gave one of the most inspiring day of hire speeches that I've ever heard any coach ever give, certainly on the football side. And you never know how it's going to work out. You're right. Ray had some success here before he went elsewhere, but he sucked me in that day.
These brick walls behind us, Jody, I'm not going to run through it for Ray Rhodes. I'm going to run through it because Nick Sirianni will let me beat him at rock, paper, scissors. So happy birthday, Coach. Looking forward for the fist bump at the opening of training camp, and we'll get it going. Bob Glauber, though, said it again, Jody. It's been a theme. All the pessimism surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles, it's about the coach and the quarterback.
All right, we'll see if the coach and the quarterback can stick at everybody when the season gets underway. We're still weeks away, but we'll be here every single day leading up to the start of that football season. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. Right back at you again in 22 hours here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.